Hello everyone and welcome to the course on simulating fluid flows using Python. A very warm welcome to everyone who have joined us as a new member. Please go through the recent lectures because today we are going to have a look at the 2D diffusion code. So far we have been looking at how to write the Python scripts where you have a one-dimensional scenario. So now we are going to take things up a notch. So we are going to increase the dimensionality in our solver. So today we are going to look at how to write a two-dimensional code which solves the heat diffusion equation. So this is valid for other kind of diffusion scenarios as well, and the only thing that you have to do is you have to change the diffusion coefficient accordingly. So if you haven't looked at the last lecture where we talked about how this equation is actually discretized using the finite volume approach, please have a look at it because I would be using a lot of concepts from there without explicitly referring back and forth between the two lectures. So I am assuming that you sort of know how we are going to discretize the equations, what are the various coefficients and the concepts associated with that. So with that out of the way, I am expecting you to know that. So hopefully you wouldn't struggle with that. If you do, pause it here and go back to the last lecture. And once you are confirmed that you are okay with that, I'm very sure that the lecture today would be much more smoother. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So in order to write a two-dimensional Python scripts, we don't really have to make a lot of changes. So I'm still using the previous code in the one dimension as my base code, and you would see a lot of similarity between the generalized code that we wrote for the one-dimensional scenario and the 2D scenario that I'm going to talk about today. So here, as always, we first get the required libraries or the modules that are needed for the calculations. So I import numpy as np and I import the matplot library as plt. So these two libraries would be used for the computations and the visualizations respectively. After that, I have these three segments here that tells the code about the grid geometry. So here the number of grid points is 51. For now I'll change it to 21 so that it doesn't take a long time for the code to execute itself. I have a domain size of 1. You can think in terms of dimensionless unit, and so that is 1, and I haven't specified a height separately. So I'm assuming that the domain is a square shaped domain, and corresponding to that, corresponding to the number of grid points and the domain size, we can have the grid spacing. Like the previous time, we have an iteration number that I'm calling as iterations. So that basically just keeps a track of how many iterations would we need in order to get a converged solution. Then we have the thermal conductivity and the cross-sectional area. So these are again the material properties and the grid geometrical properties. And here we have assumed that both of these are constant with respect to the position x and y. So they don't depend on the position here, but in general they can. So in cases where you have some variations, let us say your thermal conductivity is a function of x or y, you can have that kind of variations not here but rather inside your looping systems. So in cases where you have this scenario, and if you're struggling, you can always write to me. Then after that we initialize the temperature field. So these two lines here, they are basically initializing a two-dimensional temperature field, and we are having a top boundary as equals to 1. So remember this particular problem. So we are going to solve a problem where the three boundaries of the system, they are at 0, and one of the boundaries, that is the top boundary, is at a temperature of 1. So in order to do that, we have to write a command something like this, that t of 0 comma colon. So 0 represents the first row here and the colon represents all the column. So when we do that, it takes care of the boundary conditions at the top boundary, And this first line, as I had demonstrated in the last lecture, it just initializes n by n matrix as 0. So here just remember that the first element was 0 comma 0 and the last element is n minus 1 comma n minus 1. Similar to that, we have our variable called as t new that takes care of the iterated temperature or the updated temperature. So it's exactly the same idea as that of the 1D scenario. And we have defined a tolerance of 1 into 10 to the power minus 8 that I'm calling as epsilon, and we have a numerical error equals to 1. So this is just an initial value so that we can actually go inside this while loop for the first iteration. Here I have added a new thing. So we have so what we are trying to do is we are trying to see how the error is changing with the number of iterations. So this is typically what you have seen while you have used certain CFD software such as ANSYS Fluent, that it creates a plot where you can see how the errors are changing with iteration, and from that you can both qualitatively and quantitatively judge whether you are going towards a converged solution or not. So to get that, I'm trying to do that using a figure, of course. So what I'm doing is I am opening a new figure with this matplotlibs plot command. So we are calling that as figure 10. So I'm writing plt.figure10. So this 10 is important because this 10th figure would be always used to refer to this plotting of numerical error, as you will see later. So for the computation part, we first have a while loop. So while the numerical error is greater than epsilon, then the computing goes for all the interior points. So the change that we have as compared to the 1D scenario, that we now have two for loops. The first for loop you can imagine in terms of row, and the second for loop for the column. So here we have for I in the range of 1 to n minus 1 and for j in the range of 1 to n minus 1 again. And take care of this indentation here, because within the first for loop we have the next for loop. So both of these for loops should be one of them should be within the another, so that we can carry out the computation for every I comma j kind of point. So once we do that, once we define a point of interest as I comma j, the first thing is to define the coefficients that goes into the finite volume based computations. So here, since the grid properties are the same, the material properties are the same, all the coefficients of the neighbor, that is AE, AW, AN and AS, they would be the same as Ka by H, and AP would simply be the sum of all these coefficients, as it is always true. So having done that, now we want to calculate the new value of temperature at point I comma j, and this is where I would briefly highlight the importance of this particular figure, that when you want to convert from your P, E, N and so on kind of notation to this I comma j notation, the indexing is very important. So the indexing I've done in my code as per this figure, so you can refer it if you are finding trouble understanding anything here. So I'm on the right hand side, I'm similarly writing only that AE times TE, and rather than writing TE as TE, I'm writing it in terms of index notations. And similarly I have AW times TW, AN times TN plus AS times TS, and the entire thing is divided by AP. So we are using the same formula, that AP TP equals to the sum of all the neighboring coefficients times their temperature. So this kind of formulation is always true, or it's usually desirable, or the after effect of all the kind of finite volume based computations. So that is why it makes our lives much easier. So once we do that, so once we calculate the temperature at all the grid points, because this formula is within both these for loops here, then we calculate the numerical error again. So to do that, we first set it as 0. Then again we use the same two for loops, that for I in this range and j in this range, the numerical error is the numerical error plus the absolute value of Tij minus Ti new ij. So basically the old value minus new value, take the modulus of that and sum it over all the points. So because the boundary conditions are the same, so I'm only having that loops for the interior grid points. So once that is done, we say that we have taken or we have done one iteration. So I say iterations is equal to iterations plus 1, and I copy whatever it's contained is T new, that the updated temperature, in the T index or the T variable here. So that takes care of my iterative procedure. So if the solution hasn't converged, this T can be fed on this right hand side again, and we can get the again a new value of T new, and this procedure will go on until this while loop is satisfied. So regarding the plotting of your numerical error as the program continues, what I'm doing here is I'm writing a if statement. So again, this is a conditional statement similar to the while statement that we have here. So here I'm saying that if iterations divided by 1000. So what that means is that if you divide your iterations variable, so initially iterations would be 0, then it would be 1, 2, 3 and so on. So when you divide by 1000, and if the remainder of that is equals to 0, then only this loop would execute. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to plot my numerical error for every 1000 iterations. So you can imagine that if I try to plot it for every iteration, the plot might look very crowded, or it would try to plot very multiple times. So rather than plotting it every iteration, I'm trying to plot it every 1000 iterations. And once I do that, I again call my figure 10. So I write that plot figure 10. And here I'm using the semi-log y kind of plot. So previously we had used the plot command, but here we are using semi-log y. So what that means is on the y-axis, so first of all, semi means that I'm only doing half of the axis as the logarithmic parts. So either x-axis or the y-axis would be treated as logarithmic. So here the y-axis would be scaled on a logarithmic axis. The x-axis would remain as it is. So on x-axis we would be plotting the iterations, on the y-axis we would be plotting the numerical error. And the reasoning is because the numerical error would be very small, because we are wanting it to go 10 to the power minus 8, rather than looking in terms of absolute numbers. So you can imagine it would be 0.000 and so on. It is much convenient to look at it from a logarithmic perspective. So that number, it would simply be minus 8 if the error criteria is satisfied, and if it's not, then it would be, let us say, minus 4, minus 5 and minus 6 and so on. So it is convenient to graphically observe it on a logarithmic scale. So here I'm plotting on the x-axis, as I said, the iterations, and on the y-axis the numerical error. And I'm simply saying that plot it as a symbol, where the symbol is a circle of a black color. And I'm giving it a command called as plot.pause. So after it plots one particular point, it would take a small pause. And you would actually see that if you don't have this kind of scenario here, the plot would actually show up directly towards the end of your code execution. So you wouldn't see that real-time kind of system. So this is where this pause command is quite helpful. So let us say once we get this converged solution after the execution of this entire while loop, now we want to visualize how the temperature field is. So in one-dimensional scenario, we were satisfied with the linear variation or a plot kind of variation, but here the temperature field is two-dimensional. So temperature is a function of x and y. So accordingly, we have to pick a visualization criteria that satisfies that. So here we would be using what is called as a contour plot. So in order to get a contour plot, we first have to tell the code what are the x and y axis respectively. So here, just like the previous case, we have a x dom or a x domain kind of command, or rather variable, that basically calculates the x coordinate of all the points using np.arange of n multiplied by h. So if you're not certain what I'm doing here, please refer to the video from here which contains the one-dimensional counterpart to this, and there you will see that this x DOM is nothing but the x coordinate of all the grid points. And similarly, the y domain is the L minus np dot a range of the same quantity. Here I am subtracting this entire quantity by L because I want to have a Cartesian kind of system. So, I will talk about it later when we would actually see the result. And then based on this, based on x DOM and y DOM, we create a mesh. So, x DOM and y DOM are nothing but one-dimensional arrays. So, x DOM is an array that contains the coordinate of all the grid points or all the x coordinate of grid points. Y DOM is an array which contains the y coordinate of all the grid points. So, now what we want to do is we want to create a 2D grid from these 1D arrays. So, what I am trying to do is I am projecting this entire grid on all the levels corresponding to this y DOM array. So, to do that we have this command called as np.meshGrid. So, when we feed x DOM and y DOM into this, we get a nice 2D grid that is contained in x comma y. So, x contains all the x coordinate and y contains all the y coordinates of the 2D grid. So, once we execute this code, then I will show you what I am trying to say. And again, in order to get the plot, I am using a new figure number here. I am calling it as figure 11, and we are plotting it using the contour f as I suggested. So, we have three variables that goes into it. The first is x, the second is y. So, basically just the base grid, and the third one is the variable that you are trying to visualize, which is the temperature variable here. And here I am suggesting that we have 12 contour levels. Finally, we are also trying to see the grid lines. So, this command is totally optional. So, the last thing is we are providing a title to the plot, that the plot is of temperature as a function of x comma y, followed by showing of the plot. So, I will quickly dock this particular editor back into the Python interface, and I will run this code for n equals to 21. So, let me show you what happens when I run this particular code here. So, we have a figure number 10 that would open up, that would basically plot all the numerical error as a function of iterations, as you can see here, which is it is plotting. So, here it only plots one particular point, and the reason is, so for that to understand we have to go in the variable explorer, and in iterations you can see that the code converged in 1471 iterations, and because we had put this particular statement that the iterations would be divided by 1000. So, it happened only once, and you can see that we only have one point corresponding to 1000 iterations, and because we now had a logarithmic scale, so it is much easier to see that it was previously 10 to the power minus 5, then 10 to the power minus 6. So, that is why we are using logarithmic axis on the y scale, that it makes it a little bit easier to understand what the actual magnitude of the numerical error is. So, again looking at the final temperature solution. So, we had remember that we had x and y. So, that is what I am trying to do here, that we have from 0 to 1 on the x axis and from 0 to 1 on the y axis. So, the reason why I had subtracted that L minus something something for the y domain was, otherwise it would flip that particular axis and you would see this 1 that is appearing at the top, it would appear on the bottom. And this is only due to the way in which Python understands the 2D matrices. Remember that in Python, the top left corner, that was as the 0, 0 element, whereas in a Cartesian system, the bottom left is 0, 0. So, that is what we are trying to accommodate using this L minus that something something kind of criteria. So, here the contour plot basically is what you are showing, what you are seeing on the screen. The top part here, it contains a temperature of 1. I probably should have put a color bar here that would tell you that this yellow color, it contains or it points to a temperature of 1, whereas this dark blue color, that points to a temperature of 0. So I hope that you understand the code. If you don't, you can also refer to this code. I have put a link in the description that would take you to a web page where I've shared this code. In case if you have any questions or if you have found any bugs in this code, please don't hesitate to report them back to me. So I hope that this lecture was helpful to you. In the next lecture, we would look at what is called as a source term. So I had given you an idea of how the source term might be presented or might be contained in your governing equations. So we would look at certain techniques as to how we can handle that source term and accommodate that in the governing equation or the discretized version of governing equation. So I hope that you will keep engaged yourself with the code until then, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Until then, please stay safe and take care. Bye bye.